I took a temporary job at Hickory Chair in 1985 as I was writing a thesis for a whole different industry. I wasn't staying in this area. And during the weeks that followed, I saw beautiful things come across the desk: fabrics, leather, trimmings, blueprints. And they brought back a ball and claw, hand-carved mahogany post with volutes and toes and toenails. Such a beautiful carving that I realized that maybe furniture wasn't just stuff, it was functional art.
In the wooded foothills of western North Carolina, where mountains meet valleys and headwaters flow into rivers, a town called Hickory found its voice in the steady rhythm of hammers and hands. And it was the hands of the workers, the upholsterers, the cutters, the finishers, that gave life to every piece, generation after generation. This is the story of the Hickory furniture community, of ingenuity and ambition, of craftsmanship and collapse, of community and comeback. A story not just of furniture, but of a town that refused to be left behind. In the mid-1700s, white English and German settlers began to arrive in what is now known as Catawba County, claiming the land of the Cherokee, Catawba, and Kiyawee peoples. Settlers relied on abundant local timber to furnish their new homes. They crafted essential items, tables, benches, bedsteads, from split logs, simple tools, and sheer ingenuity. Specialized cabinet makers began traveling among homesteads, turning nearby trees into more refined furniture. This grew into an industry of skilled artisans who tailored their creations to meet customer needs, ensuring the quality and beauty of each piece.
At first glance, this would look like a white, male-centric industry. And in large part, it is. But you do have people like Philo Harbinson that even before the furniture industry started, he was an excellent furniture maker, and he was local.
Philo Harbinson was a skilled woodworker born into enslavement in 1856 in Morganton, North Carolina. Harbinson went on to become an entrepreneur and master woodworker, constructing numerous local homes and the Gaston Chapel AME Church, a church built in the Gothic Revival style.
His reputation as a builder and furniture maker helped build this area's reputation as a can-do kind of place for furniture making.
In the years following the Civil War, Confederate veterans returned to struggling farms due to the absence of enslaved workers. Wealthy Southerners became investors in the national push to adopt industrialization practices of the Northeast.
My namesake, the original Abel Alexander Shuford, came back to the Hickory area after getting wounded and captured at Gettysburg, and started a general store in Hickory. He then got into the textile business down here.
Textile mills were by far the most prevalent industry in North Carolina, but local investors recognized the region's greatest natural asset, abundant timber. Furniture operations began to pop up in Lenoir, Old Fort, and Morganton, started by entrepreneurs by the name of Broyhill, Bernhardt, and D.A. Smith.
If you go back to the 18th century, Boston and New York were the furniture capitals. And then Grand Rapids, Michigan pretty much took over that title. And as we move into the 20th century, this region challenged Grand Rapids every turn.
By the early 1900s, Hickory emerged as a new key player in the furniture industry and benefited from proximity to the intersection of two key railroad lines, Western North Carolina Railroad and the Chester and Lenoir narrow gauge.
And because it always had more commerce than any other town around, it became the place that people wanted to go to.
Around the turn of the 20th century, a prominent businessman, George Whiting Hall, had a pivotal realization.
When George Hall in Hickory saw planks of wood coming through Hickory to be taken to someplace, maybe Grand Rapids, Michigan, he decided that it made better sense if Hickory would take that wood and fashion it itself into furniture, which they did. That's Hickory Furniture. And right beside it was T.J. Martin's plant, and they both used the same sidetrack. What I think caused Hickory to be better than Morganton or Lenoir was the business sense that was already here in the community that was just now applied to furniture. because 10 years later, when they needed a chair plant, they went out and recruited one.
In 1911, George Bailey of the Surrey Chair Company in Elkin heard of the incentives Hickory was offering to attract furniture manufacturers.
No one in Hickory was making any kind of seating, so he packed up a presentation and drove to Hickory with a group of our town fathers, and A.A. Shuford was in the audience. They decided they would put up the money and move him to Hickory.
Shortly after George Bailey moved, the Surrey Chair Company was renamed the Hickory Chair Manufacturing Company, located adjacent to existing furniture factories, Martin Furniture and Hickory Furniture.
But having them so close together meant that operations could really look at each other and say, what do you need, what do you got, kind of thing. Because technically they're in competition, but on a practical basis, not really.
Local farm workers began to flock to the factories.
1922. My grandpa, Frank Bowler, he was working at a furniture company across 127 Bridge and asked for a raise that morning, and his boss man didn't give him his raise, so he packed up his stuff, went across the bridge, and ended up here and never left.
While the Roaring '20s bolstered the furniture industry in Hickory, the Great Depression threatened its future. Some companies were approached by northern businessmen to sell.
In the 30s, Hickory Chair was about to get acquired by venture capitalists from New York. And my great uncle and my grandfather met them at the train station.
And when this group of men stepped off the train to come take possession of their company, they greeted them, introduced themselves. They said, "How much did you pay for the company, if you don't mind me asking?" He said, "Well, if I write a check right here and now for $50,000 more, would you get back on that train and go home?" They said, "Okay."
In March 1931, the stockholders of Hickory Chair, Martin Furniture, and Hickory Furniture voted to merge their operations to weather the financial storm together. But factory life was notoriously hard, involving long hours, often from 5 a.m. to 6 p.m. on weekdays, and on Saturdays from 5 a.m. to 4 p.m. at 20 cents an hour.
But the conditions were better than on the farm. And so because these people got paid regularly, that's one of the things that drove them into the furniture factories.
World War II fundamentally reversed the struggles of the Great Depression. Factories that had languished suddenly faced booming demand and war-related contracts. As men left for military service, women stepped onto factory floors, keeping production moving as capable workers whose labor had long been undervalued.
Nell Burns is a good example of what a woman can do in a furniture company, because for a long time she was the girl Friday, the helper to William Cox, who owned Cox Manufacturing. But when he died, she took over the company.
Known as the Burns Girls, Nell and her sister Frankie built a nationally successful furniture business, producing chaise lounges and boudoir chairs, with pieces purchased for the White House by First Ladies Mamie Eisenhower and Lady Bird Johnson. The post-war housing boom fueled the demand for furniture. Hickory seized the moment. Local manufacturers hosted the first furniture market in Hickory in 1951, challenging High Point for wholesale buyers.
I think this is an indicator of just how strongly furniture was in Hickory, because there were so many people that were employed by the furniture industry.
Century Furniture was founded by Harley Shuford in 1947 in Hickory, a period when furniture firms in western North Carolina started to compete on a global scale.
My grandfather bought a little company called Longview Upholstery, which became Century Upholstery, and then started the case goods factory in 1949.
A pivotal moment for Century came in the mid-1950s when it debuted the Citation Collection. The collection offered 70 pieces, aimed to tie every room in the house together. This success catapulted Century as a leader in the retail market.
By the time you get to the 60s, there were somewhere between 200 and 300 furniture companies operating in this area. Now, some of them were very small, but were doing well enough to be able to advertise when Furniture Market came to town and try to show their wares there.
It started with a hot dog stand just outside of town. J.P. Mull, a hotelier and restaurateur, saw opportunity in the furniture buyers passing through town on Highway 70. So he began offering something more than a meal. He gave them a place to gather.
Well, my grandfather at the time said, hey, why don't we show our stuff in the basement of the restaurant? And that was the beginning of the Hickory Furniture Mart.
JP brought in his son-in-law, Leroy Lail, who had just returned home after service in the U.S. Navy, to take over and grow the venture. Leroy was a hometown boy with a business philosophy win-win and brimming with ideas to improve the Furniture Mart.
What Leroy used to like to say, he says, I love to build and I love to promote. Well, these things did both, because between furniture markets, he would add on space and then he would promote the space.
In just 4 years, he tripled the number of exhibits. By 1967, over 50 manufacturers had set up shop.
The whole town was invested in this. You would have signs all over the place that said, welcome furniture buyers. The manufacturers were doing all kinds of crazy things to get people to come in. Bill Mosteller, he was famous for trucking in Coors beer. You know, upwards of 60% of your year is going to be determined at those furniture markets.
And that continued, and this building we're in grew by 10 times.
Yet success brought scrutiny. A Fortune magazine article controversially called Southern furniture manufacturers a group of mountain hicks.
And it really makes the region look bad. They tell stories about people trying to take a hammer and nail in a screw, done by rubes and hayseeds. We all had grits flying out of our mouth.
It wasn't long before outside corporations began buying up locally owned companies.
Hickory Chair was purchased by Interco, the international shoe company in St. Louis, and they ran the company literally over a number of years into the ground and bankrupted.
However, Century Furniture had remained independent. They began to think critically about how to keep going.
A lot of our competition was moving offshore, and we were looking for ways to maintain our domestic production. We had to move even further up market, become even more expensive. The trick was the amount of labor that it requires to do that upper end procedure, that highly custom upholstered piece. The more refined this craft and skill of the worker needed to be. So we actually needed more people.
The jobs were leaving and people were being laid off. And so there were people that maybe had a 12-year-old son and daughter that said, don't get into furniture, whatever you do. You won't have a job by the time you're my age.
The loss of jobs rippled through the local economy. Car dealerships saw fewer customers. Restaurants on Friday and Saturday nights were less crowded. The very fabric of these communities, so tightly woven with the threads of furniture making, began to fray. The 1980s also brought a devastating blow to Hickory as the furniture market largely relocated to High Point. In October 1985, Hickory Furniture Mart had grown into the largest showroom space on the western end, but now found itself with only 30 manufacturers exhibiting on a 4-day schedule instead of 10.
Because Hickory had developed such a reputation nationally, Dad began to open the doors of the mart year-round to the public.
In less than a decade, Hickory Furniture Mart grew into the nation's leading furniture center and one of North Carolina's top visitor attractions, hosting 100 factory outlets from across 4 levels and tens of thousands of furniture customers, designers, and builders each year. It was a win for the Mart and a win for the Hickory furniture community.
By the time you get to 2000, you get some companies that are selling the nameplate of their brand, and that's all the buyers wanted, so they could take it and make it elsewhere. And all of a sudden, it's a run for the exits because people think the furniture industry is over.
But Century Furniture continued their commitment to Hickory, saving Hickory Chair from bankruptcy.
And it was the Schufer family that couldn't imagine this community without Hickory Chair.
We saw within a bigger company a living, breathing component to the community.
My grandpa and dad, my mom, my aunt, and my uncle worked here. It was over 100 years when you added up. I'm kind of honored to follow in their footsteps. I want them to be proud of the job I've done because that's important to me.
Recognizing that skills were no longer being passed down from generation to generation, Catawba Valley Community College created the Catawba Valley Furniture Academy. The program focuses on training a new generation of craftspeople, from students coming out of high school to incarcerated community members looking for a successful transition into the workforce.
It's hard for inmates to find jobs when they get out. The good thing is it makes me 100% employable. This gives me an opportunity to find a job when I get out.
Why not do something that will impact your future? Why not do something that will help better yourself, help you connect to your community, help you grow, help you change? And building furniture is something that you can pass it on into future generations. You can have an impact on yours and other people's environments. You know, I think that's important. I think that's very special.
Everybody makes mistakes, but you can also learn from it. So you're giving yourself a second chance.
No matter how much AI you employ, you can't teach a machine to make a nicely patterned couch. That takes an eye, and especially a seasoned eye.
People respect the furniture that's made here in the Hickory community, and it's because of the skill of our people. We don't just make stuff like I thought we did when I came to the company. It's just chairs and tables. They know that they're making furniture for somebody and not a box.
The value of our company is not in the bricks in the building, and it's not in the saws that sit inside the factory. It's in the people that have 20 and 30 years of experience that know how to use those saws that reside in those buildings that can actually make the furniture.
Entrepreneurialism, hard work, and resilience. And you can see those individual traits in my dad, but you can also see them throughout the community.
We transformed the way we make furniture by transforming the way we treat people. If you don't evolve, you can't survive. Change is essential, and that's what we've been good at.